So thank you. Integrity, character, super funny, great listener, steady, competent, highly intelligent, critical thinker, consummate professional, and just an exemplary person.
Anne, thank you.
So Megan has worked in post-secondary education in one form or another since 2011. She completed her undergraduate education at Simpson College, then earned a master's and PhD at Loyola University in Chicago. Megan started working at Iowa College Aid as a community engagement consultant in 2018 and focuses on the Local College Access Network grant program and the Iowa College and Career Readiness Academy. Her side hustle includes teaching college-level history courses. Megan lives in Adel with her husband and 2 kiddos. And so at this time, I will hand it over to Megan.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you for those kind words and that intro. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Okay, so I feel like, gosh, it's hard. I'm in a tough spot trying to follow Donna's session because, oh my gosh, that was wonderful. I cannot promise the same experience in this session. We are going to be digging into some nuts and bolts around our sustainability and continuous improvement deliverables. But again, just wonderful session, Donna. Thank you so much. The song choice. So Taking Care of Business came to mind initially for me just as a way to kind of connect with what we're going to be doing in this session. But then later I remembered that, so I played a couple of years of volleyball in college, and Taking Care of Business was like the song we would always start our warm-ups with. So in addition to connecting with our LCAN work today, it's sort of like a song that I associate still with kind of getting geared up and ready to go. So hopefully that will translate a bit into the next 50 minutes that we spend together. I also wanted to follow up a bit on a conversation from yesterday. So in Anne's session, I believe it was, we talked a little bit about the potential of holding some professional development for leadership team members. And Jeanette had started to type a comment in the comment box at the very end and wasn't able to complete it. So and she'd reached out to me separately about that. I did want to just share Jeanette's comment because it does connect to Anne's presentation yesterday and what I'm going to be talking about today. So in addition to doing some leadership team professional development around sustainability, around continuous improvement, Jeanette's suggestion was to include fiscal agents intentionally with this as well. And in her case, you know, the Mason City LCAN has had multiple fiscal agents over the years. So having, you know, key leadership team members who in some cases might predate the current fiscal agent, just to get that full range of perspectives on the LCAN's work over the long term is going to be important too. So that was a great point to make, Jeanette, and that's definitely something we'll make sure to incorporate when we start thinking and planning for professional development for leadership team members, for fiscal agents around sustainability. So that being said, I just wanted to kind of share a little bit about where we're going to be headed this session, just to give you a sense of what's coming up. We're going to start off by taking a look at our grants at a glance PDF, which is something, you know, that's one of our core documents for our LCANs. We've made a few updates that are reflected in our sustainability and continuous improvement planning that we're going to talk about today. So we'll take a quick glance at that just so I can draw your attention to these changes. We've really just sort of streamlined some language around sustainability and continuous improvement. So we'll talk about that for a minute. We're going to do a high-level overview of these deliverables, around sustainability and continuous improvement. We have a plan template that has sort of a dual function of driving leadership team conversations around these two topics, and then will also function as the deliverable that you'll submit for these. So we'll talk about what that looks like, and then we'll get into this actual template, this tool itself, I'll kind of walk us through it, I'll review it, and then you'll have an opportunity to then get into the tool as well, play around with it. We'll come back together as a group and talk about any questions or concerns that might arise throughout that process. So that is where we are headed. First off, as promised, we're going to start with a high-level view of these kind of updates and streamlining of language, particularly as it pertains to our grants at a glance update. And FYI, you've heard multiple times throughout the convening that we're going to be sharing resources, slide decks, etc., in a Google folder that's going to be sent out to everyone next week. This updated grants at a glance will be included in that as well, just for your reference. So with this, what I want to do is draw your attention to the red box there at the bottom. This is really where the bulk of the streamlining of the language happened. So as you'll notice, we removed the strategic plan language. It just sort of made sense to sort of fold that into continuous improvement and sustainability. It's still there, it's just sort of in a different bucket under a different umbrella. So as you'll see, year 2, year 3, year 4, that's where we bring the continuous improvement and sustainability deliverables into play, right? So in year 2, you'll see that this is a draft, a continuous improvement plan draft, a sustainability plan draft. In year 3, that transitions to a plan, continuous improvement plan, sustainability plan. In year 4, this is a continuous improvement plan assessment and a sustainability plan assessment. So each year sort of progresses from draft to plan assessment. And you know, what does that mean in sort of in practice and in logistics? We'll get there. I just wanted to kind of contextualize what we will be talking about with this sort of overview from the high level position of the grants at a glance. And this really doesn't like change any deliverables. It's just sort of, again, streamlining them and hopefully making this more of a user-friendly and more of a useful tool for LCANs for these conversations and leadership team meetings. And then on the back end, excuse me, providing you with the thing you need to submit as part of your deliverables. So again, just to dive down a little bit into what exactly sort of the meat of the guidance around the sustainability and continuous improvement plan looks like. Again, this sort of reflects what we just talked about as far as the grants at a glance piece goes, right? So if we're thinking about this year by year, in year 1, you know, we're not going to ask for any in-depth work to happen around the sustainability and continuous improvement planning. It's just too soon in the process, right? So year 2 is really when we would get into this. And I should say also that we recognize, of course, that with our LCANs currently at different stages, everyone's coming into this where they are, right? So for our later year LCANs, you're going to have a fundamentally different experience with this than, you know, our year 2s right now, and next year our year 1s and so forth. For our older LCANs, so really, you know, you'll be able to draw on your experiences from doing the work over the previous years. And of course, we know that for our year 3 LCANs, you'll be filling this out, for example, sort of midstream. You'll jump in with a sustainability plan without having a previous draft. It's sort of, you know, I feel like this is the year of it is what it is. And I think this is another example of that. We recognize that our LCANs currently, right, are going to be coming into this tool at different places. But really the thing that we wanted to emphasize here, again, is that with year 2, our sustainability plan and continuous improvement plans really are kind of draft, right? We're starting to map out what sustainability could look like. We're starting to map out what continuous improvement is going to look like. This is further solidified in year 3, ideally, with the creation of a plan with action steps and deliverables, which you'll again see here momentarily when we get into the tool itself. And then year 4 is really an opportunity to look back and reflect on what has been successful, you know, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And I think crucially as well, right, it prompts the LCAN to ask the question of themselves, what do we need to do to ensure that the work continues going forward after the grant from Iowa College Aid ends? So again, hopefully these will be tools that progressively over time will help the team have these conversations, return to them annually, and then support longer term planning. Okay, so I do want to go ahead and jump into the tool itself. What I'm going to do is walk us through this together on my screen, and then I'm going to share a link to a Google Sheet that everyone will then be able to sort of independently access. I think, Tressa, if I share this in the text box, will everybody be able to see it? Will we have to unmute people?
People are not unmuted now, but I can do that. And
okay.
Yes, if you put it in the chat box and you just click the all panelists in attendance,
right.
You will see it. Yep.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So first, though, I want to walk us through this and call our attention to some kind of key factors within this. So I do want to draw our attention to this, right? So when I clicked on the link, which is what you'll be getting, immediately you'll see the screen of copy document. So this is what's going to allow you to open this document as your own, in your own Google Drive, and not worry about editing over somebody else's, if that makes sense. We also have this tool I wanted to mention in Excel format. Again, something we'll be sharing out in the materials from this week and later going forward. So if you're comfortable working in Google Sheets, this will be available to you in this format. If you prefer Excel, you'll see this in Excel as well. So anyway, when you open this later and you get to this copy document screen, just go ahead and click on make a copy. And that will be yours. I would recommend renaming it just so it's not copy of sustainability continuous improvement planning template. But that's just, something to keep in mind for later. So taking a look at this, as you'll see, right, in the conversation that we had with Anne yesterday and kind of getting to the theory around sustainability, I want you to note here, right, across the top of this tool, we've got programmatic sustainability and financial sustainability, again, kind of tying back to the conversations that we had with Anne around these topics yesterday. Scrolling over, you can see that we get to continuous improvement. So these kind of tent poles of this deliverable are going to remain the same across years. So if I can draw your attention down towards the bottom of the sheet, you'll see that this is year 2, right, which is our draft. And then subsequently we'll get into year 3 and year 4, but for right now, I'm just gonna go ahead and stay on year 2. So you'll see that within each sort of different colored set of columns, here, the green programmatic sustainability draft, you'll see we have these key factors. And these are like the core elements of programmatic sustainability that we want our LCANs to be thinking about. Now, this doesn't mean that there might be others that could be specific to your LCAN that you might think you'd like to add just to further sort of customize this conversation and make it work for your LCAN. But these are the key factors, as you'll see, that are going to remain consistent across programmatic sustainability, across financial sustainability, and across continuous improvement within each year and from year to year. So the key factors that we want to make sure that our teams are talking about, right? Effective collaboration, identifying relevant stakeholders, building a broad base of support, thinking about how partnerships and initiatives will be maintained and strengthened, embedding LCAN in the community. How are we going to bake the initiatives of the LCAN through our mutual reinforcing activities into the community so they continue for the long term? What's the continued commitment from LCAN partners? Demonstrating results, right, as another key factor within programmatic sustainability. This is around evaluation and findings in terms of the work of the LCAN. The last two sort of sections within this, inclusion of input from minoritized people in program design, implementation, and so forth, fostering a culture that values broad-based participation. Again, these are all part of the key factors around sustainability as it relates to the programmatic side that we want to make sure our LCANs are talking about. So the way we envision this working, right, is time being set aside in an LCAN meeting. Ideally, again, this isn't going to happen this year, but ideally towards the beginning of the year, right, to help you map out planning for the year. This would certainly tie in with the work plan, for example. So then, relative to our key factors, right, effective collaboration. In year 2, let's start talking about this as sort of a draft, as an early mapping out of, in this first column here, what is working relative to these key factors, what can be worked on, right? What are some areas that the LCAN, there might be room for improvement on in terms of thinking about how the LCAN is working on these key factors under programmatic sustainability. So this would be then a working document, right, that coordinators can use to capture feedback from the LCAN leadership team members, to capture their own sort of thoughts about where the team is at this particular point in time. The next piece of this, right, getting into financial sustainability. We have our key factors here as well, right? So planning for the future. Where is the team at in terms of having plans and resources in place to support program requirements, intentional planning for continued funding, developing a range of financing options, like diversity in terms of funding streams is another point of that. And of course, crucially, coordinator sustainability. How does the LCAN foresee sustaining the work of the coordinator going forward? So again, year 2 is an opportunity for the LCAN to talk about what is working in the context of financial sustainability, what can be worked on, right? Where those areas where there might be some room for improvement. And then finally, also within this template, we get to questions, we get to key factors around continuous improvement as it relates to data. How are we going to continually review and incorporate data into goals? Tracking measures and processes, discussing, SMART goals, MOUs, asset maps, common agenda. What's it going to look like for the team to continue to address these going forward? How will policies be updated? And then the third piece of the continuous improvement key factors that we're wanting our teams to think about: continued learning. What's the plan for ongoing professional development for the entirety of sort of the LCAN team, the LCAN network, particularly, of course, as it relates to collective impact. Here again, right, we've got our opportunities to track, to record what's working and what can't be worked on. So this is year 2, right? This is something where we're hoping our LCANs are sort of getting their feet under them, and is a good opportunity to start having these conversations around these key factors, start thinking about what's working, what can be worked on, and hopefully build from there. So year 3, some things remain the same, but we also add some things at this stage of the process. So the key factors stay the same from year to year. So I won't sort of belabor the point and go through those again. But this column is the same as it was in year 2. This column is the same. Again, we're going to, this is a bit of reflection, right? What is working at the point of year 3? What are some successes? What's going well? What can be worked on? What still needs some attention? What still needs to be refined? What still needs to be further tweaked for the LCAN to continue moving in terms of forward progress? Year 3, what is different? In terms of this transitioning from a draft from year 2 into a plan in year 3, is this column here, right? We're to the point where we're assigning roles, action steps, and timelines. So what was sort of developed in draft form in year 2, in year 3, we want to see these sort of come to fruition and start kind of moving forward in some concrete ways. Particularly, right, as it relates to the key factors that we're tracking across time. So programmatic sustainability, right, we're having these conversations, we're tracking where we're at, we're planning and putting those pieces in place. Around financial sustainability, hopefully, right, we're starting to be able to track that and plan for that in more intentional ways here in year 3. And then continuous improvement, again, taking the planning piece a bit further and getting into the assigning roles, taking action steps and developing a timeline. Again, at the end, you know, when it comes time to submit deliverables for the purposes of the grant, you know, ideally, the coordinator will be able to just download this, save it, and submit this for your deliverable. So again, the idea is that this will serve sort of the dual purpose of driving these conversations while simultaneously becoming the thing that you're going to submit as your deliverable. So finally, year 4. Again, key factors have remained the same. We're talking about the same things again in year 4 as we were talking about in year 3 and year 2. But how we're assessing them and what we're sort of the questions we're asking around these topics is starting to look again a little bit different as the LCAN has progressed to year 4. So previously we'd asked, as you can see in the grade text, what is working. Year 4, we're asking what has worked, right? Again, getting to that sort of assessment of the plan and getting our arms around successes and how the work has been productive in certain areas. The next column, previously we'd asked what can be worked on. In year 4, we're assessing how did the LCAN address these areas, right? For the areas that needed attention previously, you know, what's been done in the interim? How has the LCAN to this point addressed those areas? Assessing from year 3, right? In year 3, we would have assigned roles, action steps, and timeline. In year 4, we're assessing our work around that. Were these roles fulfilled? Were action steps taken? Was the timeline met? And then new here in year 4, the $1 million question, what still needs to be addressed in order for the LCAN to become sustainable after the grant ends? So here it provides an opportunity to assign roles, action steps, and timeline. Again, I think it's crucial here. Sorry, Ken Booth and Franklin County, you're already sort of into year 4, so you're not, you wouldn't be doing this right at the start of year 4. But for other year 3s, for example, hopefully this is something, you know, that you're able to incorporate early on at the start of next year's grant cycle, so that year 4 folks can be kind of keeping their eye on the ball in terms of what needs to happen as it relates to programmatic sustainability, financial sustainability, and continuous improvement. So again, same thing here that we've seen previously with the columns, the assessments. The key factors remain the same. We're asking these same questions in the context of financial sustainability and assessing, you know, where the LCAN is at, where it needs to go. And then again, one more time, in the context of continuous improvement, assessing progress, hopefully planning for sort of the future as far as that goes. So we're hoping that, you know, again, there might be some elements within each LCAN that could be specific to your community that you'd like to add into these key factors. But again, what we've got here in this sheet are the core ones that we want to make sure that our LCANs are tracking over time, and then ultimately submitting as part of the deliverables, as a deliverable rather, for these pieces. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to see if I can drop the link to this Google Sheet in the chat box to give you all a chance to kind of click through it, right? Go to your year, take a look, start you know, reading through these key factors, start reading through the different questions that we're asking you to complete, and you know, think of any questions, any concerns you might have, and then in 10 minutes, so we'll say 10:35, we'll meet back and kind of talk about these. So I'm going to go ahead I just entered the link to the Google whoops, nope, I sent that to just Tressa, sorry. All panelists and attendees should now be able to access the Google Sheet that I just walked us through. So go ahead and do that, and we'll meet back in 10.
You're muted, Megan.
Let's try this again. 10:35. I thought we'd go ahead and bring everyone back and open up the floor for any conversations or questions you may have around this. Really, our aim is to provide you with something that will help have these conversations and do kind of double duty as the deliverable itself. And I will say, so Anne's sort of talk yesterday, the session around kind of the theoretical side of continuous improvement, this session, which hopefully is will get you to kind of this practical tool, practical approach to it, hopefully go hand in hand. And then in our next session, when we hear from Kim Warren and Muscatine, we're going to hear a really interesting example of how One Iowa LCAN has done some great work around questions of sustainability. So ideally, these 3 sessions will kind of help provide a framework for us to think about sustainability, to think about continuous improvement. So with that, let me step back and just open the floor for any questions, any conversations that might be out there.
Well, oh, go ahead, Donna.
No, Jeanette, you go right ahead. I'll wait.
I just want to say thank you to you guys for putting this together, because I know this has been one of the things I have been asking for, and it's amazing. I think Megan just answered my question, that the tool can also be the deliverable, so I can actually use that spreadsheet and fill in and submit it for our deliverable, correct?
Exactly. It should, at the same time, do both of those things for you, right? Have the conversation, take notes in your leadership team around what you're hearing, plug that into the Google Sheet or the Excel, whatever you end up using. And then, yep, that is exactly right. That's what you'll then submit.
And then as we are already in year 3, but just beginning the year 2 draft, we should try and do as much of year 2 and some of year 3 as we can, so that we can get to the year 4 next year when we're in year 4 as soon as possible, is kind of what I was hearing also. Is that true?
Yeah, so I mean, I think for year 3s, it would be fine to start at the year 3 tab, because you'll be able to draw on the work that you've already done up to this point, right? So previous conversations, previous work, I think would inform the year 3 plan. Now, if it feels kind of more doable or more manageable to start this sort of in more of a draft form as it would have been in year 2, that's fine. But certainly, if you would like to just kind of jump in midstream where you're at in year 3, we would welcome that also. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but it's just sort of, I think, the nature of introducing the tool at this point, right? Because we have LCANs at different stages along the way. For year 2s, this will be a natural kind of feed into that for our year 3s, and for Kim Booth and Franklin County in year 4, it's just coming at a different time. But don't feel like you have to sort of do the work of filling out a draft and then turning around and doing a plan for year 3. If it makes more sense, if it's easier just to jump in at year 3, go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, that does help. That's what I wanted to know, if we had to have 2 separate ones, or if we could just kind of combine the work together. So that's what we'll do. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was going to say parallels or overlaps a little bit with what Jeanette shared. I'm already thinking, after looking through the really so well crafted listing of questions, and I love the changes in the headings and the language from year to year. But I'm already thinking of using the year 2 questions. Dubuque is a year 3, but using it with maybe a full or subset of our leadership team, just as a dipstick to the now, because as I mentioned earlier, you know, we did lose some momentum. We continued on course, but we could all sense some slippage. Doing that, filling that out, and then come spring, prior to preparing, you know, for the due date of the year 3 deliverable of this sustainability and continuous improvement plan, to use that draft to kind of feed into that. I think it will be a little bit smoother transition to that. And I just appreciate so much the time and effort that went into developing this, because it's just exceedingly well conceived. And as I went through, I couldn't think of anything that felt like it was missing from the listing of prompts. Thank you, Anne and Megan. Yahoo!
Great, it's great to hear that. And I will say the sort of the inspiration for this was a document that Tamarack uses, but we were able to really like sort of expand upon it and make it relevant, hopefully, for our Iowa LCANs in the context of our year 2, year 3, year 4 framework that we have. So yeah, that's great to hear. I'm glad this sounds like it will help drive some important conversations.
I think with all our deliverables, hopefully this has come across, but the goal is, you know, these aren't just deliverables that we want you to complete just to say that you completed them and fulfilled your contract. I mean, really the grant series is designed to be stepping stones. So our goal is not to ask you to do anything that isn't going to benefit your LCAN. And so hopefully this tool, you know, we really want these LCANs to be around and in the community and continuing the work after the life of the grant. That is the end goal for us. And so we're hoping that this tool will help you get there. And, you know, if there's things that you want to add to that conversation, we welcome you to do that. You know, if there's pieces that maybe that you don't see there that maybe you need, we welcome you to do that too. These are just sort of the core components that we want to see.
So unless anyone has any other sort of closing thoughts for the good of the group, I think we'll go ahead and maybe end this session. I know I could do with a stretch of the legs before we launch into our 11 o'clock and final session of the day. So thanks everyone for attending, and we'll see you back here shortly.
Thank you, Megan.